Will fourth time be the charm? I don't know what's going on. My Facebook keeps shutting down. So maybe Facebook doesn't want me discussing this. Kidding. My name, Jax West. I run Stephen Avery Project. We are live to discuss the big announcement. Kathleen had teased it on Friday, saying she had a big announcement that she would reveal on Monday. And then we found out on Monday that the big announcement turned out to be a reward, $100,000, if someone comes forward and gives information, which then gets the real killer behind bars. So you do not get paid for just giving a tip that you saw somebody moving the RAV4, or you saw somebody planting a key, or you saw something happening in the lab. You have to give the information has to result in somebody going to prison. So there's been a lot of talk about this. I've seen the posts on Stephen Avery Project. We also have a closed group that is called MAM Gossip, where we get more in depth into the case and the drama that surrounds it in there. On Stephen Avery Project, we try to remain just about the case here and not into all the other stuff. But I thought maybe I would give the opportunity to the Stephen Avery Project followers to chime in on how you feel about this announcement. And hopefully, knock on wood, that my internet stays working, that we can discuss this for a little bit. So I want to hear from you. What do you guys think about that big announcement? Let me scroll through what comments are here so far, other than people saying hello, and hello to everybody saying hello. Kathy says it has to be solid. Yes. Brian says Kathleen is playing a long game. More patience is key. Samantha says sending love to the family. Shelly says I can't hear you. Can people hear me? So hopefully somebody else can tell me if they hear me, so I know if you're there. So my personal opinion on it. Okay, wait. First, Melissa says, I feel this was the usual hype by Zellner and not much real legal news. And Julie says, yes, we can hear you. Okay, that's what I wanted to do before I started going into my personal opinion on it. A reward is always good. So that in itself, I do not have an issue with there being a reward. The problem lies in with how Kathleen Zellner built it up like it was a big deal. I think that then reflects poorly on her, that we now have people who think that, see, she's got nothing and she's got to resort to these little immature games. We all know, if you have read any of her filings, that she has so much. It's there. There is so much there that should free Stephen, as it all points to another direction. Bobby Dassey / Scott Toddock. Our court system here in the States, quite frankly, sucks. And it's a long process for Kathleen to have to play with this court and have to wait for that court to say no till she can go to that court. And you have to prove that you have new evidence. You have to prove it's stuff that you didn't hear previously. And if those people had heard this, it would have changed the outcome, all that stuff. But so this reward is no reflection on what Kathleen has found in the years that she has been working Stephen's case. And again, I want to say that I think a reward, I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? But the big announcement just, you know, she should have just put out a post about the reward and not that big lead up. Because yes, I understand that this has put it in the press, but I think it's more putting it in the press in a negative way. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this isn't going to affect Stephen's case one way or the other. The facts do. The evidence is all that matters. But I know, like in MAM gossip, because that's where the hardcore supporters are, and it was extremely disappointing, you know, for that buildup. So that's what I will say here on Stephen Avery Project, is that reward is a good thing. I hope it gets somebody to say something. But the dog and pony show that went with it, not great. Not a good look. Let me scroll through your comments. Marta says, hopefully Netflix will add to the fund. 100K, in my opinion, is not enough to make someone turn. Tina says, it's the right thing to. Money is the key to unlocking someone's conscience. More people saying they can hear me. Thank you so much. Carol says, if it works, great, but I have my doubts. Amanda says, I was initially disappointed, but it doesn't affect the appeal. So why not see if the reward works? Money talks, so they say. Don't know how to pronounce your name. Imtiaz says, free Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey from the UK. Annette says, this is the saddest case of corruption. There's so much corruption. Tina says, the cousin did it. What cousin? Who are you referring to as cousin, Tina? And then Tina continues with, too bad his mom would not speak truth. Connie says, they are innocent. Letitia says, it's not only about the reward. It's about being able to provide the evidence, right? And hello, Dave. Esmeralda says, even if someone appears and says is the killer, we know the police are not going to let Avery free. Yeah, I mean, we see how tough it's been so far. Brian says, just hope Stephen and Brendan get out before the worst happens to his mom and dad. Angie says, wrong. Heidi says, I find it crazy how greedy Americans have become. 100K is a lot of money. Apparently, I need to be friends with all the people who think 100K is pocket change. Yeah, I'll take 100K. Ian says, anything that aids a case will be a good thing. I don't think the announcement should have been hyped up, as it was a massive letdown and looks like KZ is just going for publicity. I do love KZ, though. Yeah, there is nobody better at freeing the wrongfully convicted than Kathleen. There is no dispute on that. You know, as a single law firm, they've got 20, right? That's what her number's at. So, I mean, yes, there's organizations like Innocence Project, but that's huge all over the country. You know, this is one person in her team. So, no matter what you think of this stunt, she's still the best attorney for Stephen to have. Jamie says, cousin's husband did it. America is a joke. I'll be staying in Ireland. Angie says, she knows someone knows something. This is the incentive. Annette says she's looking for details to confirm what she has. Kimberly says, I don't really feel it is as much of a huge announcement, and 100K isn't that much to bring someone forward to this such of a big profile case. I do think it was a nice gesture. Okay, but it was a letdown and so much hype behind it. We all know this case is huge. People around this whole world knows about this and watch it unfold. So sorry, 100K is not going to make things move. Well, and the thing to remember too in this on, you know, whoever comes forward, do they live in Manitowoc? You know, if somebody was to come forward, that's scary because look at what Manitowoc has done just to Stephen and Brendan. And there are other cases that are questionable in Manitowoc. So money is a great incentive, but also is 100,000 enough if you now basically have to totally relocate? So I don't know, but if she gets anything out of this, great. Connie says, I wonder about her ex-boyfriend. Well, my personal belief is Teresa Hallback's ex-boyfriend, Ryan Hilgas, her roommate, Scott Blodorn, and her brother, Mike Hallbach, helped police in planting the RAV4. That is my belief, and that is also from things that Kathleen has released, points to that. So, because the RAV4 was spotted off of Avery property, and then Ryan Hilgas was in possession of Teresa Hallback's day planner, which she brought with her. And there were handwritten note that Teresa had written from a phone call she had taken that day for another appointment. And so how does he have that if not at least having access to that RAV4 once Teresa has been reported missing? So that's what I think with the ex-boyfriend. Dave says, so much evidence, he should be free. Melissa says, agreed, too much hype, not real legal actions. Zellner is still working and trying, yet who is going to actually get this done? That's my question. No disrespect to Zellner. Samantha says, I do believe in reward money, but if I knew something, I would come forward regardless of money. Well, that's what good people do, Samantha. And as I was just saying, too, is you have to remember what Manitowoc Sheriff's Department has gotten away with all this time. You know, think back even to Stephen's original case, the Penny Bernstein case. So I do understand if there are people there that were scared to come forward. But like somebody, now when I talk about the theory of the three boys being involved in planting the RAV4, now we discuss all this stuff at length in MAM Gossip, because like I said, in MAM Gossip is where we go more into theories and that kind of stuff. We try not to do it here on Stephen Avery Project, because Stephen Avery Project is supposed to be just the facts, just the stuff on the case. But in my believing that those three boys were involved in planting the RAV4, this is what I picture, is that law enforcement told them that they are currently engaged in depositions with Stephen over his wrongful conviction, you know, with the $36 million lawsuit, and that they know Stephen did this. Stephen thinks he's untouchable and he's going to get away with it because of the prior case, and that they needed this to be, they needed something to hammer it home so Stephen would get prosecuted. So that's why I believe those three guys helped plant the RAV4. And I do not hold that against them, because I've said, for me personally, if this happened to my loved one, and also, these are people that don't have issues with the police and all that, so not like they're gonna doubt police enforcement. That's how I was prior to watching Making a Murderer. If a police officer said something to me, I'd just believe it, because they're the law, so I could totally see them going, oh my God, this guy's going to get away with it. No way. And do what they could to help. So I don't fault them for that, but I fault them now. If that is true, and again, that's just coming from me, so don't put that down as this is exactly, this is what really happened. This is just me saying it. But if that did happen and you see everything now, all the doubt, because I would want to know what really happened to my loved one. I don't just want the case allegedly solved. I want to know what really happened and who did this and the person who's responsible put in there. They don't have to like Stephen Avery to know, wait, he didn't put the RAV4 there. We did. And so now that you see this other stuff, when you see the key and the bullet and all that stuff, if you truly open your eyes and don't just go by Netflix, you see that everything is there to show that Stephen is innocent and was framed for this alleged crime. So they should come forward now. I could not live with myself by not coming forward. And the first person to come forward, I'm sure a deal could be worked out for them. So will this 100,000 do it? Could Scott Blodorn, who's got a wife and kids, now go, if I went to Kathleen Zellner and gave her the evidence, the proof that we put the RAV4 there, and by having that, it then opens up other stuff, and now other people will talk, because once one person talks, the dominoes will fall. And then everybody else is going to try and protect themselves and want to tell the story before somebody else does. So will this money be enough? I don't know. But as I said, I believe that reward money is a good thing. Making it like this was a big deal and a big announcement, that was a giant thud. Because Stephen's case doesn't need publicity. It has the best publicity ever. It is the biggest case. That's something when I used to visit Stephen, I told him that, there will never be another case like Stephen's, because Making a Murderer was the first to really do and, show all that and get so many people that cared about this case. So sure, there's other documentaries and others are made because of the success of Making a Murderer. But it's that lightning in a bottle, so Stephen's case is always going to be the biggest, whether or not you believe he's guilty or innocent. This is just a huge case, and it doesn't need publicity stunts. So it should have just been, hey, this person came forward and has put up this money, so we have this reward, blah, blah, blah. That would have been excellent. and would have gotten press, would have gotten all good press. It wouldn't get the negative press that it's getting now and making it look like Kathleen is grasping at straws and has nothing to free Stephen, which we all know is not true. She did a follow-up tweet and said that this does not change her filing on Stephen's behalf, which will happen on October 10th. So when that filing happens, we will get a copy of it and we will go live and read the filing and discuss, and then go into discussion about it. Let me go back to reading your comments since I was on here, and since I was talking for a little bit and so many people have commented, it then pushes the comments up. So now I will miss some of your comments. So don't think I'm ignoring you and not reading yours. It's because I can no longer see it. So we start with Jane saying someone knows, they simply must. And Angie says, I'd like to know the individual who put the 100K out there. Well, we know who did, and we discussed that in gossip, but I'm not going to put it out here because I know, because people have come and told me, but that is not a flat out fact. So like I said, on Stephen Avery Project, we try and keep it about just the facts, Jax, so if you want to know who it is, you'd have to go into MAM Gossip to find out that information. Sherry Lynn says, KZ has an ace up her sleeve. There is a reason behind the madness. The voice of reason says she needs to set something where we can add to that reward. Let's get it up to 1 million or more. Well, you can go to Kathleen Zellner's website, and she does have a page on her website where you can donate to Stephen's defense. So, and you can make a notation on that you want it to go towards reward. Go for it. I do not recommend anybody giving money anywhere else than to either Kathleen directly or to Stephen's canteen or commissary directly. So I know there's lots of people out there now that are talking about there should be a GoFundMe for this. Oh God, please don't give to any GoFundMe, because people are now going to manipulate that and claim this money is going to go towards that, and then it's not. Don't do it. So donate it directly to Kathleen. If you can't do it online, you can send her a check. It's on her website of her address in Downers Grove, Illinois. Send her a check and say you want to add to the reward money. But do not send it anywhere else than to Kathleen Zellner. Please do me that favor. Next person says, Teresa says, I wish they would just get him out already. Angie says, I agree, a GoFundMe or something to aid in Stephen's help. I just addressed that. No GoFundMe. Just give it to Kathleen. Kimberly says, I'm torn between Bobby and Ryan because we all know Bobby's amazing work on his computer, but Ryan's got the day planner. Well, and both of those, Kimberly, just goes to show that there were other suspects that should have been looked at and weren't, because Manitowoc just wanted out of that $36 million suit, and now they had to make the pieces fit and point to Stephen, even though they didn't. Amanda says, could Teresa have made it back home? We don't know. Anything's possible. Guy says, Bobby is the killer. I mean, come on. I agree with you 100%, Guy. Shelly says, so Jax, do you think Ryan killed her? No, I do not think Ryan killed her. I did it one time because there's plenty out there that points that direction. And if it came out that Ryan Hilgas was the killer, I wouldn't be, surprised by it. But with everything that has come out, to me, I truly believe it was Bobby Dassey, that he is some sick, depraved individual. And I believe that Ryan Hilgas was part of helping the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department frames Stephen. Annette says, a person with info is not a good person, and most likely, if feeling greedy, would turn for less. She's giving them a place to turn. Plus pressure and publicity, they will think she's closer and try for the money. Hopefully. Cindy says, was the Avery family aware of Mark Hodnott's reward? Have you spoke to Stephen about any of this yet? This reward could go both ways. There's always two sides to consider. Cindy, I no longer speak with Stephen. Stephen is mad at me. We discussed this in MAM Gossip, so you would have to go into MAM Gossip to get that information. Carmen says, KZ knows who it is. Melissa says, is it legal to offer money and then have them testify in court that they know who did it? I don't know the legalities of it, but this happens all the time. So I would assume it's legal, Melissa, but I'm not a lawyer and I don't pretend to be. So don't go by my words on that. Jasminka says, oh, that's a pretty name. I feel really bad for Stephen's parents. It's just heartbreaking. It is really sad because there is no denying the love that Stephen's parents have for Stephen and that Stephen has for his parents. And for them to lose their son, they lost him for 18 years, right? And then he was out for 2, and now he's been gone ever since. You know, and Stephen first got locked up when he was what? He was 22, you know, so he's never really gotten to be a free adult. And you can't replace those years that he's lost with his parents. It's a travesty. It really is. Sherry Lynn says, I think Ryan moved in with Scott to be sure he stays hush hush. Well, that's why I think Scott Blodorn is the best person to lean on. I think Scott Blodorn is the one that you could get to crack on whatever their involvement is. Met says it is taking too long to get Stephen out. I know. And Kathleen says it typically takes her what? Is it 15 years to get someone freed? That is so wrong. You know, it takes hardly any time to lock somebody up and then takes a lifetime to get them freed. Debbie says, Scott Dassey knows exactly what happened. His name is Scott Toddick, and I'm sure he knows something. He knows or / part of cover-up. Gara says, I don't think they will ever get out. It's definitely a possibility. You know, and I know, Gareth, that a lot of people will then come for you for saying that how dare you say that? We believe in his innocence. Saying that you don't think they'll ever get out is not a negative on Stephen or Brendan. That's just look at what's happened to them so far and how tough a time that Kathleen is having to get this into court. So, it's just horrible. Angie says, depends. If this person has been a person of interest for some time, then comes forward and requests protection and fearing for their life, there are certain loopholes. Well, thank you, Angie. Wayne says, I have a concern that KZ is leading everyone to think she's doing more than what is showing. I mean, nothing has happened. Now some big announcement about an award. Give me a break. Well, and Wayne, the thing to remember, and I say that all the time, the thing to remember, there's so many things that you guys all should start drinking games for when I do lives, because I say the same stuff over and over again. That's our stupid judicial system, that everything is taking forever. So she has a whole bunch of cards. She's played some, but she holds some too, because you always have to have new stuff, and you have to wait for, okay, now we had to wait for Judge Flowers to say no, and she took her own sweet time before she ruled no, which everybody knew she was going to do, which Kathleen wanted her to do, so that Kathleen could now get to the Circuit of Appeals. So and that's what she'll be filing on October 10th. That's the way our dumb system is, that all that takes so long. So she has stuff, and stuff is going to happen. But now to do this little reward thing, it just seems cheesy to make it a big announcement, because it's not needed. We get it. We've had so many years now. Even once Making a Murderer has come out, there's been huge blocks of time where nothing has gone on in the case. And then she files, and we get, because Stephen Avery Project, we are the biggest Stephen Avery support page on Facebook. And we get the huge numbers every time something new comes out. So people aren't forgetting about it. But when news comes out, they'll come back. So you didn't need to do this to try and bring in attention for the case, because the attention's going to be there for when she files on the 10th. So, but I wanted to go live here because we've discussed it in MAM Gossip when it happened. But I wanted to discuss it in here too, because I wanted to give you all a chance to weigh in on how you feel on the announcement. Let me try and scroll to the very first I can get. Angie says, exactly, let those dominoes fall, my friend. And then Melissa said, money reward. Teresa says, okay, then what is the next process without someone coming forward for the money? Teresa, the next thing that's happening is Kathleen will be filing with the next court on October 10th. So we have a month that there will be a filing. And so we'll see. I don't know what will be in that filing. But, when that comes out, we'll get it, we'll post it, we'll go live, we'll read through it, and we'll discuss it. So we're now waiting on October 10th for her to submit it to that court. And then it will be waiting for that court to decide if it warrants a new trial for Stephen. Angie says, I think the hype is great because it's an update and it is huge. This is going to bring panic for those who know what's going on. Bo said, it may sound crazy, but why not hire some media and maybe some crazy stuff come up? Bo, there's been several that have spoken about the case, but I don't know if anybody's really been legitimate. So, and I'm sure they've reached out to Kathleen. Jasminka says, no money can replace freedom. Absolutely. Cian says, I wonder if Brendan's mom will sell out her husband for the money. It would be nice, but she'd be selling out her other son, and I don't think she's going to do that. Because also in selling out Bobby, she then has to admit to Brendan that she's been okay with him sitting in there all these years. So I don't think Barb will come forward. Teresa says, who put up the money? We discussed that in MAM Gossip. We won't talk about it here because it's not a fact. It's just something that I've been told. So I don't want to talk about it on here unless it was proven. Dave says, wish I could listen in at work. However, I just wish it was 1 million. For sure, someone would talk. I hope I am wrong, but 100,000 does not buy a new life. I hear you, Dave. Cian says, anything to get a bit of money. There going to at least be some disruption in the family. I can guarantee that. Well, this I can say here. A problem I have with the family is they're protecting the real killers at Brendan and Stephen's expense. They know Bobby Dassey did this, and they're protecting him. Yet they're acting like they're so supportive of Stephen and Brendan. And I am not speaking about the parents, Alan and Dolores. Alan and Dolores are their own little thing. The rest of the people in the family are completely on a different level. than Al and Dolores. Al and Dolores are the only ones that have been there for Stephen 100% from start to finish. And they're not on social media, and they don't deal with any of this crap, that the rest of the family has been doing. So when I speak negatively about family members, please know I am not speaking of Al and Dolores. I know that is something that people have reported back to Stephen and claim that I am saying bad things about his parents, and nothing can be further from the truth. Any of you who are in MAM Gossip and have seen any of my lives in there will know I have always talked in good, high regard of Stephen's parents. Angie says, I respect that. I don't know what that's referring to since I gab a lot. Dernbaugh says, they will never let this dude out. The state can't afford it. Dude will stay in jail forever. And it's a travesty if that were to happen. David says, I watch a program called Sensing Murder. I think it's based in New Zealand, where psychics are asked to go over a murder case and basically connect with the victims who have been killed and say how it was all played out. I would have to click and read more. And I would advise, as I always do, if somebody thinks they have some information, whether or not it's a psychic or whatever, pass everything by Kathleen Zellner. She welcomes all tips. So send it her way. You never know what will come of it. Angie says, great information about adding money to the reward. I appreciate that. Shen says, what is your relationship to Stephen? I do not have any relationship with Stephen. I am not a family member. I am not interested in him romantically. I am just a supporter like anybody else who comes to this page and supports his innocence. Kira says, just wondering if it was Teresa's mother who has put up the money. No, it is not. Teresa says, so in October filing, we know anything more about getting him out? Yeah, we have to wait for that October 10th filing, Teresa, and then we'll be able to see or have more of an idea of what comes next. Alan says, it looks like someone has named him earlier in these comments. Correct, Alan, but I'm not speaking on it. Jasminka says, when it's so many people from law enforcement involved in this, then it's really hard to prove that you're not guilty. Everyone is protecting their reputation, but it's okay for innocent man to rot in prison. I know. People forget about that. They want to protect law enforcement they want to put law enforcement up on this pillar that all law enforcement is good, and they're not. There's good and bad in everything. Good teachers, bad teachers. Good cooks, bad cooks. Good cops, bad cops. Good lawyers, bad lawyers. Everything. So it's not saying, you're not saying with, one stroke, everything is all this or all that. But for some reason with law enforcement, because they do such a dangerous job and put their lives on the line, that there's a lot of people who believe they're like above reproach. So how dare you accuse such and such officer of this? But we see time and time again, look at Stephen, the Penny Bernstein case. He was framed for that. Literally. By Jean Couchet, or however you say his name, Mr. Pencilman. Literally framed. Jane says, yeah, Bobby killed her. He lied about her leaving. So boom, right there, the first lie. This tells me he did it. Why lie? Well, and that's something, like Barb should not be on social media, because she has posted stuff saying Bobby told her blah, 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 which contradicts what he has told police prior. But nobody's acting on it. Bobby has lied and lied and lied and lied. Stephanie says maybe the reward will pull out one of the police officers in the case to actually come clean. Knock on wood. It'd be nice. Melissa says there's no way any of them cops are going to give it up, all crooked. You know, so you've got the high and the low of it. Stephanie says maybe he'll come forward. Melissa says no way. Yep. Felisa says, honestly, Kat knows she's right and has enough evidence and will get this to court eventually if she keeps being aggressive. Her being so loud about this case just fuels her ego, and I don't think it's necessary at all, at least Ani, not anymore, and I would have to click the rest, but I totally get your gist there, Felisa. Sian says, I can pretty much guarantee that there's going to be shit flying on here in a few months because of this reward. Might not be fingers pointing directly at one person, but pretty sure there will be hints from at least one of Brendan's family. Good. Amy says, thank you for trying to help Stephen. Well, Amy, thank you for your support of Stephen. Heather says, what if Scott did come forward, but he only helped with the vehicle and knows nothing else? So would he get the money still for that? How would that work? Well, the money says it's only paid upon conviction of the real killer. So that leaves a lot of holes in that. A lot of ways that you could like get out of having to pay that money. Because you could say, well, that if it's a vehicle, that's not pointing to who the killer is. So I'm not sure, Heather, how that'll work, but there's a whole lot of wiggle room in that since the person has to be convicted. So I don't know. Jane says, what's the deal with the REV? It actually still under lock and key? Well, that's what Manitowoc claims, but we know they lie. And they won't give Kathleen access to it. So is it still there? We don't know. Felisa says, I'm so glad that I don't live in the States, but then again, I don't know if Germany is better. Well, there's, you know, when I said before, there's good and bad in every job. There's good and bad of every country, right? So you know, so Germany's got some good points that the States doesn't and vice versa. Julie says, what worries me the most, if someone has legit info that corroborates with real evidence, that person will have to testify in court. Something could happen to that witness between charges brought in court. It could actually have the opposite results, just looking at it from a different angle. Yeah, like I said, lots of wiggle room in this. Ashley says, I hope the reward pulls them out of the woodwork and Stephen and Brendan get to be set free. I will not lose hope. Keep it positive. You won't get anywhere with all the negativity. And Ashley, I see what you're saying, but I also have to call things like I see it. And so I think building up this reward like it was going to be a big reveal just doesn't look good. You know, the reward itself is not bad, but the tease was. Angie says, yes, if he only had part in the vehicle and requested deal, he could be helping. Jane says, karma will get Judge Flowers. With the measure you are measuring, you will be measured. Shelley says, if it's denied in Circuit of Appeals, then what? Then I believe you go, and not a pretend lawyer, then you would go to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, right? Is that where you go next? You go to Wisconsin Supreme Court or the 7th Circuit of Appeals, which is here in Chicago. I don't remember. I'm really bad at remembering what is the order of all this. So if it's denied in the Circuit of Appeals, it's not done, Shelley. CN says, so quick to lock people up, but nearly impossible to get the innocent out. It's really sad. The voice of reason says, it's a good other option, especially since it takes so long to get someone out. She knows what she is up against now. KZ did the right thing and we need to support it and draw the witness out. There is one. Sorry, phone ringing. Andrea says, I'm sure KZ made this announcement on purpose. What the purpose is, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not the brilliant legal mind that she is. So I, not gonna attempt to get into her thoughts. Helen says, Helen Slater Jones, Helen Slater, The Legend of Billie Jean. I love that movie. Sorry. Why is Judge Flowers still presiding on this case, as they clearly have a conflict of interest when the same judge is acting for the Hallbacks? Well, Kathleen tried to get a different judge and was ruled against. So Judge Flowers is not presiding on it any longer because she denied it. So now it's going to the next court. CN says, I'm up for a mass jailbreak. I'll supply the bolt cutters and gloves. Who's going to drive the getaway car? Well, I will say from my visits with Stephen, because I visit some inmates here in Illinois, and then Stephen's prison in Wisconsin is by far the easiest on the visitors. They didn't even pat me down. So they do far more here in Illinois. Just saying. Jane says, I don't think KZ's announcement was the worst. It's still massive news. The news must have felt amazing to her. Yeah, perhaps she overhyped it, but hey, look at everyone. Avery and Dassey is on everyone's lips. Felisa says, any info on MAM3 being made currently? There's got to be a third season now. I have not heard that it's been even being filmed at this point. I would believe that there would be another one, but I don't think it will unless one of them gets back into court. Shane says, money talks. Sherry says, I know KZ said the 10th, but pretty sure it was the 7th because that's my B-Day, and I thought that would be a great way to celebrate my B-Day. Yeah, I know on the Wisconsin court website, it did have something that listed the 7th on there, and now Kathleen said the 10th. The 10th is a Thursday, right? Let me pull up calendar. So the 7th is a Monday, and the 10th is a Thursday. And they normally like to dump this kind of stuff on the Friday at like the end of business day. So, and Kathleen said the 10th, but I guess it'll be everybody just be ready. As of October 7th, just be ready for a filing, could be any day. Sherry says, oh, I read that one already. Earl says, Barb just let it happen to Brendan because she knew he would always be financially dependent on her. I believe if Barb knew, it's because she was lied to and told that Brendan would be tried as a juvenile, and so he would serve 2 years at most. And so she thought sacrificing Brendan for 2 years would be far greater than Bobby going to prison for the rest of his life, and possibly her boyfriend at that time / about to be husband. She was just waiting for her divorce from Scott's cousin to be final. Alex says the killer's already in prison. Wrong. Jane says, I reckon Barb knew it was Bobby and was approached to frame Stephen by the cops, but didn't realize Brendan would be collateral damage. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it went down either, Jane. Dorothy says, the person that comes forward would need enough money to retire on. Can't retire on 100K unless they are retired already. Moody says, I feel like it was Stephen's sister's husband and other nephew. Julie says, there was a psychic in the gossip group that claimed she couldn't connect or even sense Teresa on the other side. Thanks for reminding me of that, Julie. So that just went along with the people who believe that Teresa's not even dead. So that, helped their argument. Shane said, police to police. And then badges do not give them extra rights. Sharon said, but they don't need the money. Rosa said, why not investigate Teresa Hallback family if psychic does not sense her and the family goes a lot to Canada? Hannah says, who does Stephen think committed the murder? Stephen has told me Bobby and Scott. Anne says, Jax, I don't think Kathleen had too many options with this whole thing. Stephen was probably so enthusiastic about it, she just had to make a big deal of it. Sharon says, he believes Bobby Dassey, Scott Toddick did it. Tyler says, what if they paid her to run away or she already died? Loretta says, what gets me the most is all the evidence that Kathleen uncovered in making a murderer too. How can the state be that stupid to not see that Stephen and Brendan are innocent? Makes it so obvious that the state is covering up for their so-called cops. Thin blue line. Sharon says, I don't believe that Teresa Hallback is alive. I do not believe she's alive, but I also don't believe that they have proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that anything found was Teresa. Ashley says, absolutely, I do believe they have a hype of an announcement and it was just a reward. But I still hope that her plan works miracles. They both need one. Gave, not have. Yeah, believe. Okay, gotcha. I agree with you, Ashley. Julie says, when a new trial is granted, the tips called into KZ, if most are pointing at a couple of people in particular, the Dunny suspect list can be very helpful, whether anyone gets arrested or not, just proving that other suspects were ignored. John says, why can't any higher up in the courts trump the rest and demand a hearing? There has to be someone legit in Wisconsin that still believes in honoring truth and justice. Geez, I hate that state and I'd never even been to it. Well, that brings us to politics, John. It's very important that, now we're going into 2020, which is a huge election, that you're not just looking at who runs for presidents and senators and representatives. You need to be looking at who is running for your attorney generals, who is running for your judges. Did I say governors? So you need to be looking at that because those are the ones that this all falls on. Dorothy says the killer is watching KZ's every move. She knows that her announcing this news, it would make a bigger impact. Sharon says all the courts are ignoring important facts. There has to be a reason. Allison says, this just makes it seem that KZ has nothing else and this is just a last resort. And see, and that's what I said. That's what people think. Sharon says, maybe she has a plan. After all, the beast has never lost. Brian says, how does anyone know that the cops aren't behind this? Yeah, we don't. Sharon says the cops are deeply involved. They plant all the evidence in covering for one another. So I'm down to the end of all your comments. So I am going to end this discussion here. I will be picking it up in Gossip in a few minutes because I told Gossip I would be talking to them about 2 other cases that I'm working on, and then we'll also talk about this too in there. You can join us over in Gossip if you want to talk about it some more and hear about some other cases. Other than that, unless something else pops up before then, the next time we would be doing a live here on Stephen Avery Project will be when Kathleen files in early October. So, but I will leave you with, if you think this reward is a good thing, but you just want the money raised up and you want to contribute to it, go to Kathleen Zellner's website. She has a page on there where you can donate to Stephen's Defense. Send the money that way. So, all right, I'm out. See all ya in Gossip if you follow over there, or we'll see you back here in October.